Okay, this is continuing with quotes from the book Holy Grail Wisdom Quotes by me, Pete Rogers. We're going in alphabetical order. We're on the letter C. This lady, Kristen Curtis, she wrote a good book about study skills, about getting to A+. So what she's saying here is sometimes you want to contest a grade. You feel like you got ripped off by the teacher. And she says the best thing you should do is schedule an appointment with the professor and meet them at their office and ask them to justify your grade. You don't want to say, hey, you gave me a C or a B and I think I deserved an A, because then they get defensive and they probably will not change the grade. But if you ask them to justify the grade, they're more likely to look at the paper, and in so doing, maybe they'll recognize that you really did deserve a better grade. So you'll at least get them to grade it twice, so to speak. So I thought that was good advice, because I had the experience one time. I think I was a junior and I was a great student, and all these athlete guys who were friends of mine took this one geology class, and it was kind of easy, called Rocks for Jocks. And so I took the class, and the professor gave me like a B+, and I was so pissed off, to get a B+ instead of an A in a stupid easy class like geology, Rocks for Jocks. And he said it was because I didn't color in the lines on my diagram of an earthquake. The guy was a weasel. I think the reality of it was he just didn't like athletes. But anyways, I should have gone in with her technique rather than the way I did. I said, no, I think this is an unfair grade. I think I deserved an A, blah, blah, blah. All right, anyways, it was a decent study skills book, her getting to A. Next one is Nicholas of Cusa, and basically just a few things for him. To see the truth with the eye of the mind is a joy. The older a man grows, the greater this is the pleasure this affords him. As love is the life of the heart, the quest for truth is the life of the mind. Yeah, it's very enjoyable. Every time you learn something, you get a pleasant feeling, and it's one of the reasons, too, because we're rewarded for figuring out the truth in life, because in nature that keeps us alive. But I think that's also why it's so pleasant to study languages. The real secret, one of the real secrets of life, is figuring out how you can limit your number of work hours, unless you really like what you're doing, so you can free up time to do the things you really want to do. And that's one of the reasons why I admired Ben Franklin, as he figured out how to be rich by the time he's 38 years old, and he could do whatever he wanted after that. Yeah, so it takes some thought. I never sort of thought about becoming wealthy, because I always figured, my father was very wealthy, and I just took it for granted I'd be really wealthy, and I'm a lot smarter than my dad. But, and don't get me wrong, I make plenty of money, but I still have to work, and I would rather not have to work, but, I got kids in grad school, kids in college who's going to go to grad school. I'm probably going to be working for a long time. And we'll see how that all goes. Anyways, Nicholas Cusa, what else did he say? By free will, I can either enlarge or restrict my capacity for thy grace. So what that means is, it kind of reminds me like the problem of evil. So basically people will ask the question, well, if God is so good and so perfect and powerful, how come there's evil in the world? And the standard answer to that is in order to allow free will. So, if people, that's a greater good. Okay. Next quote by Cusa, we advance in knowledge by using what is known to evaluate the unknown. We evaluate based on comparison, analogy, and extrapolation. And that's sort of like the idea of we approach the truth asymptotically, meaning that each time we get a little closer to it, but we never get completely to perfect truth. Okay, Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi, I can't even pronounce his name. He's a professor of psychology at Claremont, and he studied geniuses, and he studied what is called the flow state, when creative and intelligent people get lost. They lose a sense of time because they're so immersed in a subject. And basically he noticed that the real creative, talented people, that's typical that they're like that. And the reason that they're so good at their subject is because they like it. Like Goethe had said, in order to learn a complex thing, a man must love it. And that's why you want to get yourself psyched up for any intellectual academic activity, because then you'll be more successful at it and you'll have more fun with it too. The unifying similarity among geniuses and innovators is motivational. They are interested in unique goals, different than the masses. Yeah, like the average professor, they want to make money, they want prestige, but the ones that really want to understand something and transform a field, they're rare. They're quite rare. Because it's easy to be a conformist and just stay within the protocol, but to go beyond it, to read all the fields near it and to change it, that will generate a lot of animosity and resentment and a backlash. Okay, the most useful virtue is to be able to transform adversity into an enjoyable challenge. It is how people respond to stress that determines whether they profit or suffer from misfortune. Okay, that's a good one. So that's going to remind me of Kazimierz Dobrowski's theory. We're going to go through Kazimierz Dobrowski, the Polish psychiatrist, real fast here. One last quote by Michał Csikszentmihalyi. Goals transform a walk into a chase. So yeah, so make your goals clear, because if you do, you'll be able to achieve more. You'll be focused. You'll focus your energy. That's one of the keys to high achievement. So anyway, so Dobrowski, the Polish psychiatrist, lived from 1902 to 1980. He basically developed the theory of personality, disintegration, and reintegration. And this is very popular in the gifted student teaching communities. So basically, what it means is a person often has a frustration, a setback, a failure. And then they can sit there and mope about it for a long time. But to be successful, it's good that they take their energy and frustration and channel it into some other activity. So disintegration means giving up on one thing or moving on to something else, a new approach. And reintegration means putting it into something else. So, you know, like a perfect example of my story is I was frustrated that I wasn't as good of a wrestler in college as I should have been. I mean, I was student athlete of the year, set the school record, team captain, all that stuff. But I should have been an All-American. I was one match away from being an All-American, and that pissed me off that I didn't get that. And so I at least said, well, I screwed up my wrestling career compared to what I could do, but I'm going to try to become a great doctor scientist to make up for having screwed up in my own opinion. And that's pretty much what I did. So anyways, so the idea is you don't just mope and be sad. You take your energy and you refocus it into something else. It's kind of like Alfred Adler's inferiority principle. But it's a good strategy. You know, you'll be happier when you do that. Okay, another quote here by a guy named James Ryan Daly. He says, the best way to prevent autocracy and fascism is to maintain freedom of speech, so people have the opportunity to hear different points of view. Yeah, you'll notice that what brings power to the little guy, the average citizen, the typical pro, number one, that they have free speech. Okay? Number two, that you have a Christian ethics in your society. Man is created in the image of God. That which you do to the least of my brethren, you're doing to me. And you'll notice that the rulers, they always want to censor you because they don't want you to have free speech, because they know they're abusing you. All right? You want to have something like the you-know-what Constitution. Okay? And then you want to have a religion that has an appeal, whereas God is above the ruler. The ruler doesn't want any God, because if there is no God in the society, then that means the ruler is the equivalent of God. That's why they always want that. So you will see, if you look closely at like what is the consequences of all the things that they do, it is to get rid of religion, and to get rid of free speech, and to get rid of self-defense, and to get rid of innocent until proven guilty. They want to get rid of all that stuff. They want to just arbitrarily be able to say, you are a pain in the ass, we're going to throw you in jail. Okay, and so there's nothing you could do. That's what they want. And then they want slavery. You know, let's say they want to, you know, make the two-back beast with your daughter. They don't want to ask her permission. They don't want to court her, wine her, and dine her. They want to do like what the Roman emperors did. Just say, order her to come to the palace tomorrow, and she just has to obey you. And so what I'm trying to say is, you can say that's harsh and that's cynical, but that's just how the world is. That's why you want to study the Roman Empire. There were some good emperors, but there were a lot of bad ones. And you can see how men behave when they have complete power, and there's no checks and balances on them. That's why you have to have checks and balances on power, or otherwise you just end up with a brutal dictatorship. And that's what USA was headed towards. And it still might be headed towards that. Let us hope that it is not. But those are the things that power the little guy, which is 99+% of us. We need to be able to speak freely. We need to have a religion that respects us. Okay? Those sorts of things. We need to be innocent until proven guilty. You need all these things the little guy needs in order to have a decent society. Okay? We'll just do the quote of Salvador Dali, and then we'll call it a day here. Salvador Dali was sort of the surrealist artist, Spanish guy, and he said, Picasso is a communist, but I am not. Now that's a big statement, because Picasso sometimes is credited as some type of good artist. Picasso is a scum of the earth, okay? If you study Picasso, and a good book to read is by Johnson, you know, the English historian, where he wrote a book called Intellectuals, Paul Johnson. Picasso is just evil. The more you learn about Picasso, the more you will hate him, okay? His art stinks. His statues stink. He was an evil communist scumbag. He was a known communist. The more you know about Picasso, he's a disgusting and evil bad person, okay? And he's not a good artist. And if anybody says he's a good artist, they're a scumbag, phony, conformist, lowlife. And that's why I have no respect for college professors. College professors look at some phony piece of crap, modern art, and they say, oh, and they sit there and they talk about it like it's real art. They're a bunch of phonies, okay? And it's just like psychology is all fake. Any new BS that comes along, the psychologist goes, oh, yes, These are my pronouns. Get out of here. They're just stooges. They're just basically puppets of the ruling power of the moment. They have no moral foundation. They have no ethical foundation. They don't know, they don't know jack. Okay, last quote from Salvador Dali when he had to give the world's shortest speech. He said, "My speech will be so brief that I am already finished," and he sat down. Okay, so anyways, that's it for quotes for today. Hope that was useful.